A good day to you, and welcome to the live edition of the Voice of Freedom. The Voice of Freedom has been broadcasting to the American public for 31 years. And we're not a Johnny-come-lately. I personally am one that has had a lot of problems with the federal government and fighting a vicious government bureaucracy that is robbing we, the citizens of this country, of multiplied millions. Well, why say millions? Billions. Billions of dollars. And they never seem to get enough money. And they got to devise more and more ways to create more money for more government, which we the citizens don't want. All right, we have a special guest here, and my co-sponsor is my spare host, I should say, is going to introduce him.
Yeah, we'd like again today to introduce Mr. Mickey Paletta, who is probably one of the most knowledgeable men in the country, if not the world, on the money system and the banks and how it works. He's done years and years of study, and without further ado, I'll introduce him. Mickey, where you want to start up now?
Well, the introduction, I'm very, very flattered at that. That's great. What we have to understand, Jim, is that you raised a real good point. That you were going down the road now that the government is constantly going into debt. And the money just got to grow and grow and grow. You're absolutely right, but the American people don't understand that. Is that when you have a debt system or a debt-based, however you want to say it, the one thing that has to occur, the debt always has to increase, and most of the time exponentially, just to pay our last week's interest on the national debt. Mm-hmm. The debt always continues to rise, and every year that space is getting wider and wider, and the time, people, is not too far off. Sit down on your couch and watch the Stags or whatever you guys do, and I hope you eat all those potato chips and drink as much Coke as you want, because one of these days soon you won't have that luxury. When the system goes down because you people have done nothing, it's our own fault. And don't you think that your kids and this country, and more than that, don't you believe that those 1 million boys and girls that lost their lives in defense of the United States, don't we think that they deserve more than what we've given them? Mm-hmm. I know that my cousin and best friend lost his life June 19th, 1967 in Vietnam. And did you know I was proud of him? That he lost his life so that I may be free. But when you study like I have and like you have done, Jim, for 50, 60 years, that you have to accept the facts that this government is nothing the way it's supposed to be. And like I said on last week's show, and believe me, I got a lot of calls on that, and this is not a scare method or a scaring ploy, but I really believe this, and I'm not saying it lightly, is that the United States corporate fictional government that we have in place today, headed up by this person by the name of Obama.
Oh, that communist you're talking about.
What it comes down to is that we better wake up and realize what we have. For 1.8 million Americans this year alone are going to be thrown out into the streets. And what people, excuse me, what they have to understand is that we hit on this lightly last week. Is when you go in to take out a mortgage loan, or when you take out a car loan, or when you take out a home refinance or a home loan to remodel your home, that everybody thinks that the bank is going into their account and they're actually withdrawing their funds to give you. And people, that is the farthest thing from the truth. Banks have no money. There is no money when you have a debt-based system such as ours. So, once again, when you go in and you sign that promissory note, and let's just say that loan is for $252,000.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that is the same as going into a bank, Jim, and giving them $252,000 in cash is the same thing as giving a bank a $252,000 promissory note. There's no difference.
Hmm.
And
They
now
forget-
what they... I'm sorry, Michael?
They forget to tell you that when you sign that note. They forget to mention that.
And people, listen close. This is why we're suing them. All right? I think it's about time that we get involved and we figure this out. For every foreclosure and for every one of you that has already lost your house, do you know that there's a way of getting the value back, if not your house back? Because the banking system is 100% fraud, and the bankers actually control and dictate policies to this so-called government, which is nothing other than de facto, which means it's not the legitimate government. But there was a Supreme Court case that just came down, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, and said, yeah, that you guys are absolutely right. It's a de facto government. A de facto means that is not legitimate. That is not a legal government. But you would think now that the Supreme Court would expose that. But what the ruling was, that it's working all right. We're surviving. So let's not rock the boat. A de facto government, we're going to have to live with it because that's where the government is right now. And that's not acceptable to me. That's not acceptable to you, Jim. That's not acceptable to you, Michael. And I think the time is here where we, the people, start rising up and saying that we're not going to take your lies and we're not going to accept that 1.8 million people this year are going to be living in the streets. And what the people have to see, that just because it's happening to my neighbor, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen to me. Oh yeah, that's not what it means. What it means is they're going after your neighbor now, but when the time comes, they'll be going after you too. And just keep this in mind. When you cry for help, there's no one else going to be around to help you, because remember that your neighbors lost their house while you did nothing. Okay? Now I want to address this to you guys. Most people believe that when you get a speeding ticket and you get the ticket, it's issued by the state police, that you go in and pay it and it's done. It's ironic. But when you sign that promissory note, the bank has the ability to monetize that $250,000 promissory note and increase the money supply by $252,000. Now, Mickey, where do you get that information from? Well, I strongly advise that you go online and you look at the book Primer on Money, and it was written by the United States House of Representatives.
Amazing.
Okay, and it will explain that money wasn't lent, that money was created. And all the other exhibits that we've used in court, they all prove the same thing. There was a book now that was written by a freedman who has a PhD from Princeton. He had a little job as the vice president for the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, which is a controlling bank, worked for the ABA, and he wrote in his book, Money, and this is the quote, "When the bank makes a loan, the bank monetizes the debt obligation of the borrower and creates a demand deposit account in the name of the borrower." And people, doesn't that prove that who is the lender? And doesn't that prove that who is really the borrower? Because if the bank puts it into their demand deposit account, which is a liability, doesn't that prove that the bank owes the depositor for the promissory note? And who is that? It's you and I, the depositor, for $252,000. Now, let's get back on that ticket now, okay? Now, I'm getting a little bit worked up now, but look, when you get the ticket, do you know that your courts, like I pointed out last time, that they were formed in 1776. They were incorporated, and the courts are nothing but the miniature bank, Michael, a miniature bank. So when you get the ticket, do you know that the court monetizes those tickets and puts the same dollar amount into the banking account that's on that ticket?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So every time that you sign your name, and this might sound gross, but it proves a point. If you sign your name on a roll of toilet paper and give it to your local personal friendly banker who you trust, which is your fault, that banker is going to monetize it and increase the value of the assets in that banker's account. And all it is, it's written on a piece of toilet paper. The value of that is zero. So, what we have to understand, and we'll be doing this, I believe, a couple more times, is that what we're going to do is break down what is meant by an asset. What is meant, what's a liability? What is a demand deposit account? And we're going to discuss with you some basic GAAP terms. For every deposit, there has to be a corresponding liability for the bank's records to balance. And if they don't balance, then something is drastically wrong. Okay? Something's wrong. So who goes in and checks? The government, the auditors who are really working for the banks. And don't you think that we've been fooled long enough? We have to tell them that we no longer want the foxes that guard the chicken coop.
Sure.
I think it's about time, Michael,
Yes.
that we guard the chicken coop. But before we do the chicken coop, I think that we better police our own federal government. And when you hear that we're worried about the terrorist, and I mean, it just turns me off when I hear, you got to worry about those ragheads and those people over there that ride the camels. They're evil. But I'm saying this, and I'm not very, very proud. It's the truth. Let's look at the blame, and let's place the blame where it really belongs. And the blame should be placed at the feet of the United States corporate fictional government. And it's not Iran, and it's not Iraq. It is the person that is really behind the formation of the New World Order, and which is really the United States corporate fictional government. Wake up, people. This is your country.
Well said. A lot to be said. So you're saying that the entire government is corrupt to the core. Whore government, I call it. Old whore government. It's like this crazy president we have. He's funding the Muslims. He can do everything he can do to destroy America. He won't help the Americans. He won't give the VA the fast track. These poor guys have been over here fighting the war. They get no help whatsoever. And excuse me. And but he'll let all these illegals come in to this country and give them free everything. I mean, this guy has to be impeached. If Obama's not impeached, he will destroy America. Don't listen to what he says. Watch what he does. He does everything, and I mean everything he can to destroy America. I mean, Holder won't even investigate the IRS. The IRS is so corrupt, they don't even have the authority to collect a direct tax. A direct tax was apportioned to the states. Now they to control you, the people, they made it to you. It's illegal. They don't have the authority. There is no tax form for an American citizen. That form you fill out is for aliens working in this country to pay a tax. They're liable, but you, the American citizen, never had a direct tax. It's against the Constitution.
Not just that side. It's very, very good. I agree with everything there that you said. Yeah, let me take it one step further, though, please. If we eliminate the Federal Reserve, and if we follow the Constitution of the United States, and this goes along with your views, Michael, there's no need to tax anybody anything, because the government has its own power to create all the money that they need necessary to pay its bills. And then we have these people out there that are running around saying the government can't create money. Look what Hitler's Germany did. They had created Reichsmarks, and that was inflationary. But what we have to understand is that there is no difference than what the actual Federal Reserve is doing to us now. And if we eliminated the Federal Reserve, we would have sound currency for the first time probably since 1791. And why I'm raising that year is that is when Alexander Hamilton, the father of our banking system, who I thought was a sound wisdom, and when you're in grade school, and the teacher who I respected, Alexander Hamilton this, Alexander Hamilton this, Jefferson this. I believed all that. But do you know that when they first introduced the first Bank of the United States in 1791, Jefferson and Madison went to Washington and said, Mr. President, we cannot have a central bank. It's against the Constitution of the United States, and through the power of debt, it won't be long until they ruin the whole system of government. Look around, people. What have they done? So, do you know what Washington did? He signed the first Central Banking Act, the Bank of the United States, in 1791, and against Madison's and against Jefferson's views. And you know what the banks did in 1792? They contracted the money supply, causing a real catastrophe, a rescission of the money supply, and a real major recession. And how many times, Michael, are these bankers going to do this to us? And yet we can't figure it out, and yet we allow them to do it to us every 10 or 15 years. And what I got to say is, when are we going to wake up?
The problem is, we know the problem, but it's trying to educate the masses. The people are very difficult to educate. What should happen is the Federal Reserve bankers should be locked up for treason. The government won't do it because the government is controlled by the bank. It's not the opposite way. It'll never happen through government. You got to start making noise, and a lot of noise. What are you going to do in the near future? In 2 years, there won't be a sovereign United States the way we're going. What are you going to do the day they close the bank? There's no work, no money, no food, nothing, no heat. What are you going to do in that day? Then you're going to be under the clutches of poor government. You need to stand up and make some noise now, today, while you still can. Anything else you want to add to that, Mix?
Yeah, Michael, we could go on
Forever.
for probably months and months on this. I would really believe. I've been doing this now since 1988, which is not as long as you've been doing this, and it's not one half as long as Pastor Jim has been doing this. And let me ask the people like you guys, how do we unlock the door out of their knowledge and to get the masses marching with us downtown York and downtown Harrisburg? And what does it take, Michael, to unlock the door to give these people of the knowledge? And not just the knowledge, but the desire to learn that they don't have. Like I said on last week's show, as long as they got $1 in their gas tank and they buy a McDonald's burger, which is really great for you, okay? But they're perfectly content. And I don't know what it takes, okay?
They've been educated dumb. They're dumbed down. They don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to know nothing about it. They want to put their head in their sand and think, oh, it's not going to affect me for the next few years. What do I care? I'll be dead and gone. But you better pay attention. What about your children and your grandchildren? You know what terrible problems are coming. I mean, you think the Depression, or you hear about it, Depression was nothing, which was also created by the bankers contracting the money. Even Bernanke admitted that. But what's coming is going to make the Depression of 29 look like a picnic. If you're not prepared for what's coming, if you don't have food supplies, if you're not out of the system, get your house paid for, you better understand it. If you don't, you're in serious, serious trouble. And there's nobody to educate you. People like us try to educate you, but it's difficult because you've heard so many lies all your lives, you believe the lie. You can't hear the truth. I don't know what you got to do, hit you over the head with a 2x4 to get your attention or what. But it's coming. Start researching these things. Research the Federal Reserve. Look at Obama. His real name's Barry Soetoro. Soetoro. You'll be amazed at what you find out about this guy. I mean, he can't destroy us fast enough. He is a Muslim. He hates America. What's it take for you to catch on to see what he's doing? He's disarming the country. He's cutting down the armies to a little bit of nothing. He wants to get rid of all our weapons. He's not helping Israel, protect Israel. I mean, he's just put $48 million into the Muslims' hands. What's that tell you? He's letting us be invaded by these children at the border, bringing sickness and disease. He could care less, and people think he's asleep at the switch. He's doing exactly what he wants to do. He is working his way to destroy America. Wake up, people. Call your congressmen, your senators. Make a whole lot of noise.
Yeah, call who?
them worthless
Yeah, what are
Congress.
they gonna do?
If you make enough noise and they don't think they're going to get reelected, maybe they'll actually do something.
I doubt it. Yeah, I doubt it.
I know, but you got to do something.
Yeah, let me explain a story. One of my real good friends for years, and I was telling him, keep in mind, he has a master's degree. He used to be a professor at Pitt, I think it was. And I was, telling him, Michael, the same thing that you were saying. And you know what he said to me? He says, Mickey,
who cares?
Mickey, as long as I get my Social Security check every week and my pension, I don't really give a damn what they do, as long as I could go golfing 2 or 3 days a week in my golf cart. I don't care if this system does go down.
What's he going to do then?
Well, but he hasn't thought of that. But as long as he has his golf clubs and gas to go back and forth, and he gets his pension account and his Social Security check, that he don't care about your home. He don't care about my home. Now, what does that really say? Just what I said last week, that when we start waking up and starting to look at this, is instead of I and me, we have to start looking at this as us and we, and then we may stand a chance. But until that happens, Michael, I just don't know what's it going to take. Because when I go out, like years ago, I used to go out and do a lot of talking on fractional reserve. Excess reserves, required reserves. And within 5 minutes, that you would have believed that I hypnotized them, that because they were all sound asleep. So over the years, I got smart. I said, I don't think that story is, doing very, very well. So I stopped saying that, and I haven't brought up fractional reserve. That you guys been around us now for 2 or 3 years, and I don't believe that you ever heard me mention a fractional reserve. And it really cracks me up, people.
Yeah.
Fractional reserve. If the banks have the power now to monetize your notes, why would they even need fractional reserve banking? Fractional reserve that could be used at the highest levels of banking, not on the everyday loan of giving you a loan. And let me just shut my portion of the show down and saying, people, when you go into a bank to get a loan, the bank is not really giving you a loan. The bank is lending you or giving you back the value of your promissory note that they literally have stolen from you, and you have no idea that what they really done. And that's the same thing as going into a bank with a $5 bill and saying to the banker, please give me change, and he hands you 5 $1 bills. It's not a loan. That's an even exchange or a swap, which is nothing more than what the banks do.
Okay, nice to have you with us again, Mickey. We hope to have you back for some more programs. This is something we, the people, need to understand and get our heads centered in the real area and do something about getting an honest government that can vote their honest convictions rather than being voting by pressure. If you don't do the way the Federal Reserve wants you to do it, you don't get your money. It's a system of, I would almost call it bribery. So we'll get at that, but we usually close our program with a challenge. What are you doing about getting America back to the principles that made America America? There was room in our lives back there for God. We made room for him in our families. We made room for him in our own personal lives. And we need to get back to that vital relationship with the good Lord. So remember, pray for America. Get your church to pray. Get people to pray. Till next time, God bless you. Bye-bye.